There are three main ways you can change your thread. The first is to work to the end of the row like this, knot it, and then simply start a new thread, and then you would end up with a whole row of tails on the side that you would need to weave in at the end. The second way, you take the old thread and the end of your new thread, a couple of inches of both. I have 2 of the pink because it's worked with 2 strands held double. You take your new thread and your old thread and you lay them across the top of your crochet. You can put a slip knot on here, but you don't need to, because if you just hold them taut, making sure that it's either thumb and forefinger or these 2 little fingers, and then you just start to work. So you work, I'm working the turning chain with the new thread, and then I'm going into the new stitch, remembering that I'm wanting these 3 threads to lie on top of the crochet. So I go into there, make that new stitch, catching all of that thread in the middle, and I do the same thing again. Into the next stitch, all that thread is in the middle, you see how it just disappears. I do it again. All the thread is just in the middle. Particularly with the synthetic, I have to give it a little tug sometimes so that it doesn't bounce around and get a bright idea. You see how it's just disappeared, it's held. And now this new thread that I'm working with also has its own tension to it. The gauge is different because this is a single thread, this was double thread. Don't worry about that. And I just work my way along like that. And that's one way you can change your thread. Just keep working along. And as you can see, the further you get along, the more it secures itself down, and you don't have to worry about it coming undone because it's entirely encased within here. I'm just going to work my way along until those tails do disappear, because I then want to show you the next form of changing thread. You see, as you work this last bit over the very ends of the tails, just got to be mindful to keep those ends entirely encased within the stitches. See that? It popped through. I don't want that, so I'm going to undo that. Take it back out again. So it's not popping itself back out. So that they are entirely encased. There we go. So, one more. No ends visible. Thread has changed, no ends visible. Now, so I want to go back to, I want to have blue now. I can do that by working my way over the blue for a length. So I would take this blue. My favorite way to do this is to actually take a longer tail than I want, and then I just simply snip the end. So you take that, hold it, then you keep working. You're doing the same thing. So you see, I'm going to have that blue encased in the middle. And it will just disappear. It may not disappear quite as fully because it is blue and it does stand out next to the pink. It is a different color palette, but even so, it becomes much harder to notice. So you can do that. If you wanted it to be entirely invisible, of course, you could do this method so that it goes back under itself with the blue. And you work a few stitches like that, and then you simply change. So I'm going to change my working thread to be the blue and lay the red over it. So the blue is now the one that I'm working with. I'm just going to begin working my way along, encasing the red. And this means that you can change mid-row without any problems. This is fabulous for working any sort of a shawl or a jacket or a jumper or a blanket or anything of any great size where you can work half a row and that's, you know, a couple of hundred stitches or several dozen stitches, and you don't really want to have that thread wait until the end to change your thread. So you can do that and just work your way along. Now, another way that you can change thread, I have got sick of the blue, I now want to go to pink. So if I want to go to pink here, or if this was another ball of the navy and I just wanted to add that, I'm going to do it in the pink so that you can see, even though you will be able to see what I'm doing. Done the turning chain. So if I'm wanting to go to pink, I can just do this. Take the two threads, they will cooperate, which they don't want to right now. I'm just going to work my way along here a little bit so you can see what it is that I'm talking about if you wanted to do this mid-row. So I'm part way along the row and I just need to change my thread to a different new ball of thread. Now, if I didn't care about it showing, maybe it's the same type of thread, whatever it might be, or I actually like the look of the overlap. So I would take the new thread, I'm going to use pink so that all these different methods are in a different color so that you can see afterwards easily. So take the pink, you see I've got a nice long tail here for me to hold with the crochet in this hand, and then you simply crochet with the two threads at the same time, and just I have the two threads, I'm crocheting with the two. It creates a thicker stitch, but it will only be for a few stitches. And the two threads are being worked together, which secures both ends. And you just do a couple of stitches like that. Now, if this was in a navy, you wouldn't be able to see the difference here. It would just simply disappear. However, this does show you the effect of if you are crocheting with two different strands at the same time. You just do that, and then you drop the old one, untangle them so they're not twisted together, which yarn does like to do. And then you would just drop the old one and continue crocheting with the new one, like so. Obviously all these ends that are on the other side there, if I was wanting to weave them in, I could crochet over the top of them like I've just shown you. Now you can see there I've just had one of my ends from the previous row pop out. I would just snip that. I would just go and give it a little tug like this so that I can see them clearly, and I would just snip that end there. It's only a couple of centimeters, well, millimeters, and I would just go snip and just keep working my way along like this. Now if you're wanting to change colour and not have it be noticeable, and you're wanting to do a couple of stitches like this, and then you're wanting to change to a different one, and you see how you end up with this, that navy overlaps the bottom of that light pink. You can do that by, pick up the red, so you pull your pink through, so you have those two loops on, and then you pick up your new colour and you use your new colour to finish the stitch. Obviously that means you have to fiddle with the tension manually, and then you would lay your ends over it, crochet over that end and your new end, and just gather all those ends together. End, working end, they will behave there. And then you just crochet over them like this, and then you have changed colour without the top of the neighbouring stitch holding the colour of the previous stitch. So if you're wanting to do the method where you've got your new thread going underneath, and you can do the same thing, you can do colour work like this, and that's a whole bunch of different ways to change your thread. And this one creates a seamless colour change mid-row where your stitches are, the entire stitch is the pink, the entire stitch is the red, without the overlap of the navy top on the pink bottom like you've got here. And we just undo it all. Whee! Whee! All the way back. All the way. When you're doing this, you're undoing it. If you don't want to undo too far, stick your hook in at the top of the stitch that you're wanting to keep. And then you can just all the way, and your hook is perfectly placed to start crocheting again.